it's just not necessarily about Fred Hampton. I think it's more about the FBI informant, FBI's COINTEL program, and just shining a light on the fact that the Black Panthers were assassinated. Hey YouTube, and hello to my brothers and my sisters and all my relatives. I'm back at it again with another Media Lit review, and on this beautiful day within the Ives of Black History Month, we will review Judas and the Black Messiah, a film that I have been so excited to watch. So in this video, I'll give you some details about the film and some more media resources that you can watch, listen to, read, in order to learn more about Fred Hampton and some of the events that take place in this film. I'll also give you my breakdown of the characters, and finally I'll give you my honest review of the film on its own and in the context of our white supremacist, imperialist, capitalist patriarchy. So let's get into it. Oh, the triggers. This movie is about Black revolutionaries, and anytime you have Black revolutionaries, you're gonna have a lot of police violence and state violence, with a sprinkle of racism and whataboutism. First off, I do feel like this film wasn't as graphic as I thought it was gonna be, and I'm pleasantly surprised by that. But I think that it's important when talking about this film and criticizing this film that we understand Fred Hampton's politics, the politics of the Black Panther, and the politics in that time frame. So here's a synopsis of the film. Offered a plea deal by the FBI, William O'Neill infiltrates the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party to gather intelligence on Chairman Fred Hampton. This film is an amalgamation of many events and many different types of people. I myself had to take a step back and realize that this film is not about Fred Hampton. It's about Fred Hampton's assassination. And that's hard to grapple with because it feels like Black people only matter after we die. The film focuses a lot on William O'Neill, aka Bill, in the film, and that's something that I wish I would have gone into the film understanding. Behind the camera. So the film is directed by Shaka King, who is known for Mulligans and Newlyweds. I don't know what any of those things are. Maybe you do. This is definitely the first film that I've seen from this director. So here are some key people within the writer's room. Will Burson, there's Keith and Kenny Lucas, and the cinematographer of the film is Sean Bobbitt. He's a cinematographer that has worked with black skin, and I think that is really key, because you ain't about to just have us look fading into the background. What do we notice about all of these names? Even the producers, Ryan Coogler, they're all men. They are all men. So let's get down into the cast. Daniel Kaluuya, he plays Fred Hampton, the Marxist-Leninist Black Panther of the Chicago, Illinois chapter, and he was also a member of the NAACP for quite some time. And I do want to note that in this film, Fred Hampton is somewhere between 19 and 21 years old. So it's not apparent that these characters, these real life people, are young during this time, but they're extremely young, like just out of teenage years. Lakeith Stanfield, he was also in Get Out with Daniel Kaluuya. Lakeith plays William O'Neill, who is the FBI informant. And also, again, important to note that he was 17 when he became an FBI informant. 17. Next up, Dominique Fishback. Oh, she's just like the shining star for me. She plays Deborah Johnson, who is the fiance of Fred Hampton. Deborah actually now goes by Akua, because that's what a mother does. She gives the world the most precious things she loves, and I love you. And I love our baby too, and there's nothing more radical than seeing that through. Born pure to the blood with the heart of a panther. Martin Sheen plays J. Edgar Hoover, and it is just too believable for me. I can't Martin Sheen. Anywho, J. Edgar Hoover is responsible for the assassinations of many Black revolutionaries, including Malcolm X and MLK. Jesse Plemons, he plays Roy Mitchell. He basically represents an amalgamation of white people. And then there's Daryl Britt Gibson, who plays Bobby Rush, the co-founder of the Illinois chapter of Black Panther Party. Let's keep going. Next up, some people in the supporting roles that I think are still very, very important to identify. Dominique Thorne came in playing Judy Harmon, just a badass woman of the Black Panther Party. Judy Harmon is a fictional character. Judy in the film, she's a badass, she's not afraid. She is one of the people that is skeptical of Bill, the FBI informant. So Judy is a positive representation of women within the Black Panther Party. At a certain point in the film, I was feeling like Judy's character is not fully fleshed out. She's in there in the beginning and then she sort of fizzles out. By the time you get halfway through the film, Judy is no longer a main character in the film. And so I was wondering, I was like, why? Google. I couldn't find a singular person that Judy Harmon's character was based off of. For now, she's a fictional character. She doesn't directly correspond to anyone in real life in the Illinois chapter of Black Panthers. And I think that's probably why we didn't get to see more of her beyond her badass shooting skills. And then I thought about, what do I know about the Black Panthers? The Black Panthers weren't the best place for Black women to feel heard. There are a lot of critiques about how the Black Panthers treated their female counterparts. Judy Harmon, the character in the film, represents an amalgamation of strong, powerful women within the Black Panther Party, including Elaine Brown, Assata Shakur, Angela Davis, of course, but also Erica Huggins, Kathleen Cleaver. There are just tons of women in the Black Panther Party who were integral to the organization, but they were not in the spotlight the way the men were. Next up, Nicholas Velez plays Jose Chacha Jimenez. Chacha Jimenez is a real-life person. He was a strong comrade of Fred Hampton. The two, Chacha and Fred, actually, they were arrested multiple times together. So I think it was really important for them to put that in the film beyond just the Rainbow Coalition. Chacha Jimenez was the founder of the Young Lords, a Puerto Rican Latinx group that was specifically focused around issues of colonized people, of immigrants. Specifically, they were fighting against the Urban Renewal Program, which was a gentrification of Puerto Rican neighborhoods within Chicago in that time. So in the film, there's like this group of white people who Fred Hampton recruits into the Rainbow Coalition. And I just want to identify those white people as the Young Patriots. They are white Southerners who migrated from the Appalachian region into northern Chicago. They were dealing with different types of inequality and prejudices, such as being labeled as white trash, which is said in the film.
Look, we oppressed your people for a long time.
I didn't oppress shit. And my folks grew up poor. They were sharecroppers.
AKA the overseer.
What if the overseer had banded with the slaves and cut the masters through?
I wanted to bring up this group because I think that there's a history of Black revolutionaries joining coalitions with Appalachian white rural folks. Great example of this is MLK and Rosa Parks being trained and also hosting trainings and discussions at the Highlander School. Highlander is a PC word of saying hillbilly. The Highlander School is just integral within the Appalachian region in terms of workers' rights, even racial justice, and overall equity and equality. Next up in this Rainbow Coalition, there were Students for a Democratic Society. SDS is mostly known as an anti-war organization. They're not quite socialist, but they do believe in participatory democracy. The Brown Berets are a Chicano Mexican-American group. The Red Guard are a group of Chinese-American activists. I just want to say, at the time when the Rainbow Coalition was announced, it had impacts beyond just Chicago, Illinois. And that was really scary for the US government, who's trying to oppress all of those groups. America was done. America was so fed up with Fred Hampton and the Black Panther Party. So in this section, we're going to talk about Judas and the Black Messiah and its attributes as a biopic film. There were some beautiful shots in this film, most notably one of the very first scenes with Fred Hampton in it, and you can just see the camera pans to one side, and then as he moves it follows him, and then it pans to the other side, and I just loved that movement. There was a lot of great camera movement. So there's a scene where the cop is has a flashlight in his hand. He's in a dark, you know, factory alley looking place, and he's looking for this Black Panther that's on the run. I thought it was interesting because instead of taking the cop's point of view, the camera kind of flips and the audience is in the point of view of the person hiding. I just thought that was a really interesting touch to it. The drip was nice. Styling and the costuming was groovy, but I don't know if we could give the filmmakers credit for the style because the Black Panthers were stylish, point blank and period. Lastly, this is like my biggest critique. The sound in this film was not right. Like, there were points where the dialogue was so low, but then like the soundtracks or the foley was like really high. I don't know, maybe because I watched it on HBO Max. I did not go into the theaters. Things like explosions, bullets, those kinds of sounds, I do expect them to be high. But I don't expect there to be such a disparity between the sound of the explosion and the voices all within the same scene. So next we're gonna discuss the film and how it fits into the historical context and how it will age over time. So while watching the film, it kind of dawned on me that I don't think most people will see the film in 2021. I think that the impact of this film will depend on people's access to it and how it is syndicated. So whether it gets put on BET or the OWN network or even Bravo. So many people are not going into the movies to actually see this film, and if you don't have HBO Max, if you're not willing to pay $14.99 a month, then many people are gonna have to wait a minute to see this film. And so I thought about that in terms of access to storytelling. I think what this film is doing is shining a light on the FBI's COINTEL program and the Chicago Police Department. And it's not so much about Fred Hampton, who he was and what he believed. I think that this film does a great job in rewriting the legacy of Fred Hampton.
Don't seem fair. That's his legacy.
Lastly, let's go over Judas and Black Messiah and how it fits within this imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist patriarchy. If you haven't heard, Chicago-based rapper by the name of Noname was asked to be on the soundtrack of this film. After seeing the film, Noname decided to decline, citing that the film misrepresents Fred Hampton's political ideologies. I kind of agree. And I agree to a certain extent. I think that this movie is great for what it is, but it's not about Fred Hampton's ideologies. You know, I was so excited to see a film about Fred Hampton. I had to step back and realize this film is not about Fred Hampton. It says it in the synopsis. It says it in the film's name that it's about the Judas. It centers the Judas, the FBI, and the COINTEL program. Fred Hampton's ideology took a back seat, and I think that they sugarcoated it and kind of washed over some of his more radical ideas. Indeed, they did misrepresent Fred Hampton's approach to violence against the police. For example, there's one scene between Bill and Fred where Bill is like, let's blow up the police. Let's blow them up. Let's kill them all. And Fred's like, no, I'm not about that. My heart. And it's just like, that scene was so unnecessary. First of all, we just didn't need it. Like, who is that scene for? I think it was put in there deliberately as to sanitize him, you know, like to make him more palatable for the white liberals. And I just hate that. Like, so what if he was for killing the police? Say it and be real about that. Be honest about it. And let's have a real discussion about why he felt that way.
And trying to paint my Jake as some cold-blooded killer. He did that. He did that. But that ain't all he did.
And I feel like that scene was just in direct contradiction to his actual ideology. Like, why would you go out of your way to say that he was against killing the police? It's difficult because I did my research and I know that Fred Hampton Jr., his surviving son, as well as his fiance, Deb Johnson, who now goes by Akua, they were strong consultants of the film. It just seems like they are supportive of the film and the way that Fred's political ideas were portrayed. But is that enough for us as an audience? Is it enough to have the families backing up the film? For me, right now, in 2021, it's enough for me. Noname and other people might feel different, and that's totally fine. So many people feel like it's wrong for the film to identify Fred Hampton as a socialist when in actuality he self-identified as a Marxist-Leninist. And at first I was like, y'all are being nitpicky. For me, and the way that I see both of those terms, Marxist-Leninist is a part of socialism. I think we have to kind of realize that the term socialism is constantly changing in its connotation. Some people, they hear socialism and they think, let's all get along, kumbaya. Some people hear socialism and they literally think of violence. I don't know how. When most people think of socialism nowadays, they think of Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders has completely different politics than Fred Hampton. There are different types of socialists. The Bernie Sanders side thinks that we can reform. The Fred Hampton side is about radical revolutionary change. I think that this film wasn't very honest about the role of women in the Black Panther Party. I do feel like the Black Panther Party values Black women, values women's issues. But in terms of practice in the individual Black Panther chapters around the US, not every woman felt safe or heard or validated within those groups. Many women within the Black Panther Party felt that their role was degraded to being a secretary or typewriter for the Black men in their party. There were some Black Panthers who were deeply ingrained in misogynoir, and the film just did not fully address that. In conclusion, this movie has been a long time coming. I was super excited for myself and others to learn about Fred Hampton and the Black Panthers, but particularly the Chicago Black Panthers, because that was a really revolutionary chapter of the Black Panther Party. But there's an overemphasis on the FBI investigation, which is important to understand, but I think that it comes at a cost. And that cost is that Fred Hampton's actual ideologies and political views take a backseat. Overall, I just hope that this film is just the beginning to your and my own journey into understanding not just Fred Hampton, but the Black Panther Party, the movement that inspired millions. And I hope that there are lessons that we can take with us and use in the current Black Lives Matter movement. So I want to give you all some resources so that you can learn about Fred Hampton, the Chicago Black Panthers, and just about Black liberation and Black love in general. And it's got pictures! Congratulations on making it to the end of this review. I know it's gonna be a long one. Do you think this film is as radical and groundbreaking as Fred Hampton's politics? Do snitches get stitches? How does this movie relate to our current movements for Black liberation? I want to hear all of your answers to all of those questions, so please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.